Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk. Hello. And hi, Nikita. We have a special guest today.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
Yes. Hello. Please say hello in the chat for us so we'll know where you are listening from. And you might have noticed Jill is not with us today. She's actually on vacation. So we wish her well on her vacation. She is actually, I know she'll probably talk about it next week or next week she should be back. She went to the Grand Canyon. So
Oh,
I'm excited about it. They were actually supposed to hike rim to rim, but a couple of months ago there were some fires that happened, so that trail is actually not open. So they did a couple of other trails. So I've never done the Grand Canyon, so I'm excited to hear more about it.
me neither. I have planned a trip to the Grand Canyon, but I have yet
I'm
to
not
go.
actually.
Yeah, I haven't gone yet. So,
I haven't either. So maybe that's on our bucket list because I know you like to travel too.
yeah, I like to travel. I like to hike. So it'd be interesting to hear Jill's story because I think it was a North Rim. There was like a lodge or something that caught fire,
Yes.
and it was pretty devastating. So,
Yeah. Because that lodge had been there since like the 20s or something like
yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
very old. Yeah,
Yes.
I think that was
So
actually the lodge I was planning on staying at.
really,
Yeah, because it's really
wow.
nice. It's one that well, because of its history, but then also it's just like really huge and really nice. So
Yes. I know. I saw pictures. Yeah, that was pretty devastating. I don't know
mhm.
how that's working out now in the area because it's been a few months ago
Yeah, it's been a
since
couple
it.
of months. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was early summer.
Early summer, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Jill will have an update for us next week, which we're excited about. But this week we are talking about why leadership is critical for emerging food brands. And Nikita, you are great to have this conversation with because you've had the opportunity to work with small brands, emerging brands within food, and it's different than working with a large organization.
It is very different. Than working with, I would call them the established organizations, the established companies who kind of
Established.
like set the way for how companies and food companies run now and like what's trending and
Mm-hmm.
where the trends are happening in terms of the consumer market. So it is very different, but it's also very interesting
Mm-hmm.
how fast each other moves
Mm-hmm.
within the culture and also within
Yes.
workloads.
Yes, it is. And I want to dive into that today. But to kick off, we've been doing something new each week since we've restarted our season a couple of weeks ago. And it is what's trending. And this week, I want to talk about leadership myths. This is something that's been popping up on my social medias where people are sort of talking about like different myths. And the way that I've seen it is like other leadership coaches talking about like this myth and why it's actually a myth within leadership. So I want to just talk about three of them that's really top of mind this time. I know Nikita, for people that don't know, Nikita is also the co-founder of the Black Professionals in Food Safety and Quality with me. And so we talk about these leadership myths all the time with our group.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it just have been top of mind for me. And I thought it would be really good to talk about during this section of what's trending.
Yes, let's get into it.
Yes. So, okay. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is feedback is for annual reviews. That is a myth.
It is a huge myth. I
Hmm.
mean, you have one-on-ones for a reason. It's not just to review your workload, but it's also to review your performance as a
Yes.
colleague contributing. So
Yes.
even the mid-year check-ins,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that they're great as a summary of what's going on and like a snapshot of how you're doing throughout the year. But in actuality, you should be getting feedback, if not monthly, if definitely weekly
Oh
from your
yeah.
manager on projects,
Absolutely.
on performance, team values, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nikita, you also brought up one that I hear all the time about around myths is that, oh, I don't need one-on-ones with my managers. And you brought up the reason why I tell people always touch base with your managers. Even outside of your managers, right? You want to make sure you're having those one-on-ones. But even if they're not weekly, bi-weekly, at least bi-weekly. And it really is because of feedback. You
Mhm.
want to be getting this ongoing feedback around your projects, around what others around your managers think about your projects and your progress and what you're doing, right? And how they feel about you from a perspective standpoint. All of that is information you should be collecting on a regular cadence. And those one-on-ones is a perfect place to get that information.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even if it's just like at one of my jobs, you call them coffee chats, where you will be discussing something that's related to work, whether it's a project or a KPI. But you also, it's more of an informal chat, just to be like checking in and checking the pulse on the relationship. And during those times, one of the things I like to ask is like, how can I support? Like, and that's kind of like, I think a nice segue into like, what can I improve upon? What is something that I did wrong? What is an area that I might have missed or I was blinded to? So that's just like a nice question. Be like, hey, how can I support? Like,
I like that.
Where can we help each other out here?
I like that. I like coffee chats in that question for people who you might want to meet with like once a month, or I'm thinking about like the manager of the manager, right? Or your manager's peers, right? That you want to stay close with, that you might not need to meet with them often, but just those coffee chats, and then asking too, like, how can I support you? In what ways can I or my team support what you have going on?
Or even just like in terms of the relationship in general, like, I get the support from you. It really helped me if this format was used instead. Things of that nature. Or, hey, when giving direction, feel free to address me directly instead of saying maybe we, or feel free to just like reach out on Slack during a meeting. If you have something like that.
I love that. That is such great advice. And it's such great advice for how to be a better leader in the space. And just asking that question, I feel like opens up even like trust for people. Like, okay, this person really cares about what I have going on. And it allows for people to lean into the things that you
definitely. I always try to frame it from like a constructive mindset. Like, how can we build upon what we have here? Relationship or project.
I love that. Yes. So it's a myth. Feedback is not just for annual reviews. You should get feedback all the time. One thing that Gallup data says, it shows that 80% of employees who've received meaningful feedback in the past week are fully feedback to my team. Well, the more often you give feedback, the more engaged it seems like your employees might be, or your teammates might be, or your peers, right? Even your peers might be, to say, ooh, I really like the way that you do that. Or, hey, can you shift the way you format it to be more helpful? Just that feedback makes them more engaged. And I feel like makes them feel more meaningful in their work.
Right. It definitely shows them that you care. Because if you didn't care, you wouldn't be saying anything. And so giving feedback and showing like, hey, I see you. I see the work that you're doing. I see how you fit into this team, really helps them feel like they're a part of the company. It helps them feel like they're a part of the team. And it makes them, I would say, want to just engage more with work and engage more with the team and be a team.
Yes. Okay, so that's our myth 1. Myth 2 is that good leadership must be available 24/7. You have to be able to reach me at all times for me to be a good leader. And we know
that is not true at all. I think it's like, I don't know where that came from. I feel like it came from a Hollywood film or something. That's not how the real world works. You have to sleep at some point. You have to eat dinner and have a personal life at some point. The work-life balance has to be balanced in some way.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be in order for you to be a good leader. Like, I remember working at a facility and we were going through this period of time that really, honestly, due to leadership, our lab group was being micromanaged. And they were calling us every single night. I was grouchy by like day 7. Not a good leader, right? Like, I was grouchy where I'm like, okay, I have got to have a full night's sleep. I have to be able to sleep through the night. And just like when you don't have sleep, when you have a recharge, you know, we talk about this in boot camp. You know, I know that you've gone through our leadership boot camp where we have a module that's just around recharging. Because if we're not recharged, right, like we know just as human beings, if we do not feel our best, it's hard
Right.
to be
And then that's when burnout happens, because you don't have those boundaries in place for your health. If your health is your wealth, if you are not taking care of your health and taking care of like your rest time or recharge time, how can you contribute to the team?
Right. Exactly.
So, and then you get burnout, and then you kind of feel taken for granted for, and then resentment starts to set in, and before you know it, it's just like a slippery slope to, I guess, what they call like quiet quitting. So yeah, good leadership is not available 24/7. It is, hey, you got me from 9 to 5, and if it's an emergency, feel free to contact me after 5.
Right, exactly.
Maybe not 9 to 5. I know food manufacturing is more like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Right, exactly. And we work in food, right? We know it's not 9 to 5. We know we're going to get phone calls overnight. But really great leaders doesn't mean that they don't need you at certain moments, right? But if they cannot make decisions independently, right? If they're not empowered to make decisions independently, then you might need to call us, right? There might need to be some communication around like, how do I build these leadership skills to allow my team to thrive without me always being involved 24/7.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the great lessons I learned from food safety and working in food safety is that food safety is kind of like a guardrail system. That's really how you should probably try to set up your leadership communication style, just like your style. It's like, I am here to help guardrail your work. I'm here to help direct you on the path of business goals and like the company objectives. I'm not here to be your nanny. Right. I'm not here to micromanage you. You know, you're a full-grown adult.
Right.
I trust you can do the job. That's why I hired you. That's why you're hired.
Exactly. That's why you're here, right? That's why you're here.
Yeah. If you have questions, reach out. Always reach out for guidance and questions. But if it's 9 o'clock at night and it's not an emergency, you should not be thinking about work.
Yeah. No, you shouldn't be. You know, I when I talk to people and they're like, oh, I had to go in, I need to work third shift because, you know, my team, I didn't feel like my team was prepared, or someone's out on vacation. This is actually the biggest part. Someone's out on vacation, and then I feel like as a leader, I need to step in and do all this extra work. When in reality, that just tells me
no, not at all. I mean, there's backups for a reason. When we put together our org charts for our GFSI audits, and we had to sit there and put in like, who is your backup and who is the backup to this, that should kind of like activate the idea of like, oh, if I'm on vacation, the backup plan should
be exactly. You know what? That's the difference between doing the activity as a checkbox versus actually doing that activity.
Yes.
Right. The actual activity is who is going to be your person if you are not available. That means you are on PTO, you are out, right? You're out of the building. Who is the person that's covering these tasks? And it's important for you to actually think about that. And if you think about it and you say, wow, no one is. No one's covering that task if my lab person is out. I have, right? Like you need to start building up your skills on the team so people can step in if someone goes out on vacation. That shouldn't be a disruptor, right?
No, I mean, that's why we have our food safety management systems, all of these SOPs that we write, all these SOPs that we review and train on. That is your number one resource. Right. That's what they call it, the one source of truth. Everybody should be able to go there and say, if I have a question, I should be able to go read this SOP.
Right.
And these days you don't have to read it. If you're open it on Google Chrome, it will give you a summary. It'll automatically generate a summary of the SOP and like a sidebar.
Yeah.
You
don't have to write. Exactly. Yeah. And this is across, right, all functions, right? If you feel like that you have to step in if one person's out, might be prepared for that. Or maybe you are, right? Maybe you're prepared for it.
Right.
But if you always feel like you have to interject, you know, one of the things, Harvard Business Review, they say that leaders who do that they feel like that they're needed because they're solving their team's problems, but they're actually limiting their growth, their creativity, and their ownership. Right? You know what to do. Okay, how are you actually transferring the power from yourself to them? That means you are not involved.
How are you activating their strengths
right.
as individuals on your team? That's really what good leaders do. They activate strengths. It's like, hey, if I'm not here, I trust you to do this. And if you need guidance, you know, use internal resources. But I should be your last resort if I'm out.
Right. Exactly. So that's the second one, right? Like good leadership actually builds teams so that they do not need you 24/7.
Right.
And the third one, this is a good one too, I feel like. The myth of emotions don't belong at work.
I would say very strong, overly passionate, theatrical emotions don't belong at work. But we are all human beings. We're not like Vulcan, you know, we're not emotionless. Emotions do belong at work because we're humans.
Right.
We're not robots. So
that's exactly.
More importantly, management of emotions.
I like that, right? Emotions do belong at work, but we want our leaders to be self-aware and know how to manage their emotions, right? So that they're not distracting or causing conflict, right? But we're actually using it to engage others, to inspire others to move forward. And that is all based on emotions, right? How are people going to feel about this change, right? Are they going to resist it or they're going to champion it? That's emotions.
Yeah. If there is a conflict at work, you know, food is very emotional. I don't know how it became this way. We used to have at one of my companies, we used to have this saying when things started getting tense during like a RCA Kappa exercise, you're just like, it's just muffins.
Right, exactly.
Someone had to like shout out, it's just muffins.
It's just muffins. It's just yogurt.
It's just yogurt. It's just pretzels. Like this, like
no. We said the exact same thing, and it grounds you because we are emotional, right? As human beings, we are emotional, and as leaders, right? Great leaders use those emotions, or let me just say, capitalize on those emotions to move people forward versus allowing them to get stuck or to wallow in their emotions, right? And exactly when you talk about like conflict, when you think about conflict, and even people who feel like a certain employee is the conflict, it's all around emotions, right? That person is typically super passionate, maybe not in the direction that leaders want them to be in, but they are passionate about whatever it is they're talking about and whatever it is they're fighting for. That is emotions. And leaders, when I think about like even the most successful influence method is around inspirational influence. And that is all about emotions. That's all about how do I feel about something, or how do I value something or believe something, right? And the leader will take that and say, this is how this connects to your value or to what you believe. That's all emotions.
Yeah, you have to direct it at the goal, not at the person or the team.
Right, exactly.
Always direct it towards like the end goal, the business goal, the KPI.
Exactly. That's what makes it successful. You know, we had this conversation recently about culture, and someone had stood up and talked about, this was at the IFP conference, and someone had stood up and talked about how like an employee had just gone through a breakup. So they had broken up with their boyfriend, and this is why they were sort of off at work. And they kind of told the story of like, this is what might be happening to your employees. And it kind of was like a throwaway comment. But one of the things that I said was that situation is very real for that employee. Right? Like whether or not I feel like, oh, it's just a boyfriend, or, you know, whatever I feel about it is actually irrelevant, because that person is distraught, right? That person doesn't feel like themselves. That person might be crying. That person might have a million thoughts going on in their head outside of making muffins or making yogurt, right? Like that's a really real thing for them. And strong cultures actually acknowledge those emotions and make it very human and saying, wow, that must really suck to be going through a breakup. How
Yeah.
can I support you during this time?
Mm-hmm.
Just that shift of shining a light on something that is important to someone else, strengthen your culture.
Yeah. Because we can't escape our personal lives
Mm-mm,
at work.
we cannot.
We can escape
No.
our work lives
Right,
if we
exactly.
choose to. If we put those boundaries in place, we
Yes.
can escape our work lives, but we cannot escape our personal lives.
Oh,
Our
I
phones
love
are on
that.
us all the time.
Yes.
Something's always going off. Something's always reminding you of something or someone.
Mhm.
Um, but giving that person space and grace
Yes.
to deal with that in their own time, and to just show like, hey, I see you. I care for you.
Yeah.
I think helps a lot with them overcoming the situation,
Mhm.
because if it's a negative situation, it's pretty easy to feel like I think shame about
Yeah.
displaying those emotions at work, because
Mhm.
again, the whole myth of emotions don't belong at work. Like I should be positive all the time. I should be a team player all the time.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen, especially for some
No.
of us who need that coffee before we speak a word.
Right.
That is not the reality of the situation.
True. True. And when you feel like you can't bring your full self to places, you don't feel included, you don't feel like you belong, right? It actually leads to burnout because you're
Mhm.
trying to show up in this space where mentally you might not be in.
Yeah.
And that's very draining.
Or you just silo yourself off, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I'm here, I'm doing the work, and I'm going home.
Right.
And you're not engaging with people or forming a connection with people,
Right.
which
Yeah.
then doesn't really build teams. It doesn't build team communication.
Mm-hmm.
So making space for people to show up at work in their state that they're in,
Yeah.
or telling them, hey, if you're feeling too strongly about something, work from home.
Right. Yeah.
Stay home and do it.
Mhm.
Like, if
Mhm.
mental health is just as important as your physical health. If you're
Yes.
sick, we don't want you to come to work, especially
Right.
in food.
Exactly.
We have a whole SOP about communicable diseases. If you're
Right.
sick,
Exactly.
don't come in. It's the same thing for your
True.
mental health. If you think, you just can't be in a team player state that day, maybe stay home. Maybe,
Right. Yeah.
take a half day or something.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And we should value that more.
Definitely.
We should really value that more.
That is something that I see a lot more in younger companies than
Mm.
I do see in established companies. In established companies, it's kind of like, oh, you feel something way, go to the bathroom, splash
Right.
water in your face,
Mm-hmm.
and get back to
Mm-hmm.
it. Whereas
Yes.
these younger companies are like, stay home.
Right.
We can slack. You can keep your
Mm-hmm.
camera off.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what? I think that's a really good segue into this talk around emerging brands because they do a lot of things right. Like they do a lot of things that I think established companies want to get that back. And I think it's around that flexibility that you're talking about. It's around, yeah, this flexibility of I want you to be productive in the space that makes you most productive.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be here at work, in the office, it might be at home, it might be a hybrid, it might be depending on what you have going on, right? Like if you're going to come into the office and you're so distraught that you're really just going to sit there and just stare at your computer, right? And like
Yeah.
not do much of anything, but you will actually be more productive at home, no video camera, so that you could cry and wipe your eyes, but still get work done, right? Like maybe that's the space you need to be in today. And I think that's where younger companies, right? I almost like to think about them as like teenagers or young adults.
Yeah.
Like where I feel like they get that right many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
It's this space of leadership that they struggle with. And there's real reasons for that, right? Like you and I both have worked with companies that's been in this growth mode. And, you know, one thing that they're really looking at is like, how do I land that next retailer? How do I expand in different parts of the country or the world, right? How do I come up with new products and be innovative so that we can compete with established brands? And they focus so much on that, which I think comes from that productivity piece of like, you know, work wherever you are type thing. But I think they miss the piece of how do we develop our people so that they have the right leadership skills to be able to lead us forward? And then how do we also focus on culture, right? Which I think leadership is a huge piece of that so that you can retain talent, so that you can have engagement, right? So that you can keep people more than 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Because once you become a teenager, a young adult company, that knowledge is even more important than it was in the very beginning, right? Because we know in the very beginning, your products are changing, recipes are changing. It really is not the same company after 2 years.
No.
But once you've been here for 30 years, right, the company starts to look the same year after year. So you need to retain that talent. And I think emerging brands struggle with that. Because
they have way more tribal knowledge than established brands because they, one, have not developed a documentation system,
right?
Like SOPs.
Yeah.
You know, they're giving a thumbs up in Slack.
Right. Thumbs up, move on.
Thumbs up, move on. It's like, no, yeah, there should be more formal documentation of what's going on, why changes were made. That's something I think startups and like emerging brands should really hone in on.
Yeah.
It's part of their culture. It's not just go, you know, growth spurts. It's also, you know, documenting things so that we're not making the same mistakes.
Right. Again. Exactly.
Or something's happening, you're like, well, how do we even get here? Well, where was it documented?
Right. Where was it documented? Where do we capture it? Right.
Yeah. Because, you know, you can archive a lot of things in Slack and not be able to find it. Or, you know, users get deleted because you have high turnover and then you lost whatever it is that they were working on or whatever was recorded in their emails. Tribal knowledge, I think, really does hinder growth, and it could be a great way or a great resource to just keep things moving efficiently.
Right. Yes. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about, you know, what emerging brands or like these teenager, young adult brands can do and focus on so that they will sort of smooth over these patches of low retention, low engagement, right? And lack of employees, right, that are staying. And I want to start first, Nikita, by you just telling the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, how you made it into food, and why this topic is relevant for you.
Sure. So, hi everybody. I'm Nikita.
Our full conversation around myths.
Right, around myths. I'm not a myth. So I got started in food. Well, I graduated with a food science degree from Ohio State. And so anybody who graduated in food science or knows food science knows that typically you're expected to go into product development, research development. And I learned about food safety as a career while I was in school. And I was like, this is exactly what I want. I want regulation. I want public health. I want to eat food, not develop food. Documentation, organization. And so that's how I framed my career. After I graduated, I started working in food manufacturing. Specifically, my first job was a dry mix plant. So if you think about the Betty Crocker or like the Ghirardelli dry mix box that you see in the grocery store, that plant produced that product or like larger versions of that for grocery stores. And then and that was my first experience at GFSI. It was a DRC audit, and I was like, what is this?
What is this?
I've never even heard of this. And I just like, this is fun. This is great. And kept working in food manufacturing for a couple of years. And then during COVID, like 2021, when we were all just like at the fringes of our sanity, I was like, yeah, let's just get out of food manufacturing and go into younger brands. Let's go work in food service. Let's go work in biotech. And now I'm kind of like, I'm co-manufacturing aligned and I'm working at a startup right now. So I've worked with very established brands who have been around longer than my parents have been around, like 60, 70, 80 years old. And now I'm at a brand who isn't even as old as my career. So it's a very wide range of experience and expertise. But yeah, that's how I got into food and decided to stay in food.
Yes, yes. I'm curious because, I mentioned earlier you've been through our leadership boot camp. You're going to take strategic leader into the future. So you understand the importance of having strong leadership skills in the food industry. I'm curious, just how do you see the importance of leadership in established brands versus like in a startup or an emerging brand company?
I would say for established brands, I think there's definitely a lot less micromanaging. There's a lot more like, hey, we know the system is in place. We have these checks and balances. We know that you're doing this. We don't have to talk to you about it. We don't have to Slack you about every single status update. There's a little bit more trust in that you can do the job. And then during those like, mid-year reviews or end of the year reviews, that's when you're like, okay, did we fix the gap that we talked about in our one-on-ones? If not, what's the next plan of action to fix that gap? Or did you exceed in doing this and we think you need to head in this direction in terms of having your career at the company? That's pretty much my experience in established companies. When it comes to startups, it is most of the time it's a lot of young people who are very fresh in their careers. So we're all just leading each other and we're like, yeah, this sounds right. That's good.
Yeah, let's go down this path. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah, this makes sense. Chat GPT validated. I'm like, guys, no. That is not how we can validate things here.
Right.
But there is I feel like in established brands, it's very easy to be siloed within your department.
Yeah.
Because even though you're all exchanging the same data and you're seeing each other's data, the communication and the discussions sometimes don't happen with that data. Now, if you're in a plant, working in a plant, then you have like your morning operations meeting, you're reviewing what happened the previous day, what happened the previous night, and then what needs to happen for today, or like what maintenance schedule is happening towards the end of the week. You don't really have that with or I would say startup brands.
Right.
There is no review of the previous day or the previous thing.
Right.
I think that could be pretty beneficial to review, even if it's a project. Say you don't own manufacturing and it's just a startup that's using co-manufacturing. I think it's very healthy and I think it's very wise to review projects or big shifts in business goals.
Yeah.
To understand, hey, what went wrong? How can we fix this in the future? What blind spots did we have? Who was included in this project and who was brought in last minute because something came up and we didn't think to include you.
Yes.
Yeah. Things of that nature. So I think in established brands, there's a little bit of more respect about knowledge and respect of tribal knowledge and recording that tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
Whereas in startups, they're moving so fast and they're making so many different changes. Things just get lost in the weeds.
Right.
And the weeds are sprouting up everywhere. They're reacting to things very quickly. So it's a more reactive environment, whereas in an established brand is more of a proactive environment because they're like, we've been doing this.
Right.
We know
they have that knowledge.
Yeah.
And the people knowledge, right?
Yeah. And the people knowledge too. They're bringing in people who have already started their careers, people who already have been in the industry 10, 20, 30 years. Usually with startups, it isn't until they get to like they're out of the toddler phase into their teenage phase. You're like, yeah, we need people with way more experience.
Right.
We need parents.
Exactly. We need parents. We need
parents to come in. People with way more knowledge than what we have, even as co-founders, maybe, possibly.
Yes, yes. And I see like where these teenagers, young adults, when they get to this point, this is almost what I'm calling these emerging brands, where they know that they need people who have experience, right? And we both worked in organizations and worked with organizations that's at the point of like, yeah, we need people who have experience to help us move forward. But they actually struggle with then creating this compelling vision around that. So like
Mhm.
they kind of stay into this spot of like micromanaging or um I don't want to say like lack of respect, but more of like not leaning on the experience that they hired,
Mhm.
to be able to move them to a different place. And I think one of the critical drivers of that is really around our first point, which they really don't have the leaders to be able to build this strong strategy and to have this compelling vision going forward. It's being stuck in the space of like, okay, we're moving fast, 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 fast. We're shifting. We're doing this, to
Mhm.
like, okay, we need to still be innovative, right? Still hold on to the things that make us who we are, while also starting to shift into how do we build this compelling vision for the future that goes past the next couple of years, but really take a look at what have we learned, right? I love it in the way that you said it. Taking a look and say, okay, how did this project go? What did we learn? What did we bring in last minute that we need to actually incorporate into the way that we do work? And how does
Mhm.
that support a future vision of what we are moving towards?
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes that's missing from a leadership standpoint.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think it's missing one because it's change and it's
Mm-hmm.
growth. And with growth comes a new comfort zone. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to first find that comfort zone and get comfortable in that zone.
Yeah.
And you've kind of built like this cocoon of safety around what you know and who you've been working with. And
Mm-hmm.
I think in startup brands where it's difficult to get out of that mom and pop shop mentality.
Yes.
We've done so well so far. We're like this next stage is there, and we see that it's there.
Yes.
We're not sure if we're comfortable getting there just yet.
Right.
They've also tied some of their identity, personal identity,
Yes.
to
That is true.
what the company is and what they've established and what they've been telling the world.
Yes.
And they're not seeing that identities change over time.
Mm.
Identities grow over time. And as the brand grows, the identity of the brand will grow because you have a new audience. You're
Yeah.
reaching more people. You're reaching
Yeah.
into new markets. You're
Mm-hmm.
reaching into markets you probably never even heard of.
Right. Yeah.
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 And people are reinterpreting your brand or reinterpreting the service that you're providing. And you just need to like catch on to them like, okay, oh, people are also seeing it this way. And
Yes.
so we can grow into that sector,
Yes.
but still keep some of the energy of who we officially started as.
Yes.
You can't start off with a goal that is or an identity that is very stringent, that is
Mm-hmm.
very conservative. It has to be malleable. It has to be flexible. And I
Yes.
think sometimes starting brands kind of get stuck in being
Mm-hmm.
flexible with that.
Yeah.
And also just
Great point.
uncomfortable with new knowledge coming in because
Mm-hmm.
you also don't want to lose your business to somebody. Have
Right.
somebody come
Yeah.
in and just take it over and make it theirs. That's a
Right.
real fear. That's a valid fear.
Yeah.
Um, so, but you have to document things and you have to analyze the data and understand your emotions and understand how your identity ties with the brand, as
Mm-hmm.
well as how your identity will change and grow with the
Right, exactly. I
yeah.
think you hit on a point too, where it's like you're reaching other markets that really don't know your backstory, right?
Mhm.
Like they don't know the backstory that this company started in like the kitchen here and someone's recipe, someone's grandma's recipe, and like, like the early adopters do. They love it. They love the story. They love the identity behind it. They love all these things. But
Mhm.
when you grow, when you're really, really looking for this amount of growth, you start hitting markets that they really just like your product,
Yeah.
right? They really like your product. It fits into the world that they have. Maybe I think more and more people are interested in like sustainability and other like social things around a brand, I don't think that's going to go away. But it doesn't mean they really truly understand why you created the brand. And I think like at some point, and this is really hard to do, but I think you've touched on it, where you have to decide what are those things that make your brand who it is that you want to stick with, and what are some other things that you have just used over the years to grow your brand and to connect with people that no longer serve you.
Right.
And I think leaders spend the time thinking about that. Great leaders spend the time thinking about that so that they can really build this compelling vision for their future that doesn't necessarily keep them stuck where they are. Because when you hire people that have like, industry experience and, they're trying to help you optimize, they're trying to help you, move forward into growth from a food safety standpoint, right? Things are expanding and we're trying to keep people safe. We want to know what your brand means, right? We want to know what's most important, those guardrails, right? Those barriers that are there. And then we need a play in between, right? To make sure that your food is safe, that is of high quality, that even people want, right? Like even working with brands where it's like, we're getting a lot of complaints around this product, but the founder loves it, and it's like, I love it that you love it. I do. I love it that you love it. But are we trying to like put this product on your family table only, or are we trying to sell it in this grocery store?
Right.
Like, so which one are we trying to do? And I think leaders, when you think about like leadership skills and being able to understand your emotions, right, and step outside of it, you start making decisions from what's most important. Is it most important for your consumers to enjoy this product, or is it most important for you to enjoy the product?
Right.
Like you need to make that decision and let your people know these are the guardrails. This is the organization we're trying to be.
Yeah. I mean, from their point of view, I think they get a little defensive of it because it's them. Yeah. It's like their vulnerability. Like I put this out there because I believe in this, or I want this taste profile. I want, this functionality of the product.
Yeah. And I get that.
And that's fair to feel that way. However, the market would like something else. The market maybe thinks that it should be modified in a certain manner. And just be able to realize, hey, it's not an attack on you. It's not even a dismissiveness of you as the brand or as the owner or the founder. It is simply, this is a preference that is out there.
And I would say like leadership skills on both sides, right? The leader side, right, that's been there, and then even the person that's coming in trying to have these conversations. It's important to be able to tap into, we talked about this myth of emotions, right? Emotions don't belong at work, where emotions are here, whether we want them to or not. Being able to tap into those emotions and to know, like, right, like you've been building this brand for 35 years, 40 years, 50 years, and now you're trying to grow it even more. Like just acknowledging this is going to be hard to do. Let's talk about how to do this, right? Let's talk about what emotions are coming up and how to manage those emotions during this time. It's super important. And I think that's all leadership.
Yeah, that's definitely leadership. I mean, just being able to identify the emotion and then know, okay, is this a constructive emotion?
Right.
Or is this a restricting emotion? I think ego and pride and shame are very not constructive, but very like restrictive and deconstructive emotions.
Yeah.
Do you need to have ego to a certain point? Yes. Ego comes along with confidence. It comes along with being proud of the work that you've done. That's fair, but do not let ego drive everything else. That cannot be the emotion that drives everything.
Yes.
I think, if anything, the hard work and the team player aspect and the growth aspect, the willingness to grow, the curiosity should drive things.
Yes. Curiosity should drive things. This is one of the reasons why we incorporate coaching, because coaching foundation is really around curiosity. And you're right. When you show up and you and you really lead with curiosity versus ego, you start seeing a different culture, right? And I think it goes to this point of like strong leadership retain talent.
Yes.
Right. And retaining of that talent really is imperative to growth.
It is, because nobody's talent is limited.
Mm-hmm.
It expands with the company, it expands with different roles.
Mm-hmm.
Strengths expand as well. They get stronger.
Right.
A
Yeah.
weakness, you can try and make it stronger and tap into it, but really you should always try to play on your strengths,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where your talent resides in.
Mm-hmm.
So great leadership will coach those talents. Great
Right.
leadership would want to retain that
Right.
and say, okay, you're serving this capacity, your passion is fueling this capacity. We've seen some shifts over the time you've been here. This role might fit you better now.
Right. Oh
Let's
yeah.
try it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't really work out, we can bring you back to this, or we can just, do like a 90-day trial of this task or whatever, and come back.
Yeah. That's that flexibility we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with organizations where you could tell they're trying to grow, but they keep losing their talent. And it's like they don't understand why. And it's one of the reasons why, I really wanted to create an organization like Catalyst, is because this organization struggled so much, and they were on this path of growth, still is on this path of growth. But it's so frustrating when the longest person that's been at the organization outside of the founder and like one other, like senior leader is 2 years, right? In a company that's been around for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I see the frustration happening on senior leaders because they're trying to create this vision and move forward and all these things and want to grow in these areas and want to do all these amazing things that we're talking about, right? But they cannot do it because they cannot retain their talent. And if you're in a situation where you feel that way, where it's like, we want to do great things, but we cannot retain our people, you need to stop and think about, how are we leading?
Yeah.
Are we creating a culture that people want to stay in? Because really leaning on that and like prioritizing that is going to help. Because if you do not have the talent that understands what happened 5 years ago, like that can stunt your growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's someone else coming in that you have to reteach the culture, reteach what's going on, have different opinions, all these other type of things. Like it is really critical to be able to retain that talent. And I think emerging brands, these teenagers or young adults, they struggle with retention because they're not focusing on how their leaders are leading or the culture.
Yeah. Or they're changing the brand. Maybe they're rebranding overall, remarketing themselves and their product, and didn't really follow up with the team on how it sounded.
Yeah.
Didn't include them in the change.
Yes.
They went to some outside PR firm, and the PR firm was like, well, if you want growth in this area, then you have to attract this audience and you have to rebrand and do this. And they're like, okay, cool. Steer the ship this way. But then
no one's coming with them.
They saw nobody. So
right.
I was like, I thought we were going north. Why are we heading east?
Right. Yes. It's like change management, right? Change management and the emotions behind change.
Mm-hmm.
I would say emerging brand startups, they're so used to making these quick decisions, right? And the people that were there in the beginning, like they're all for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course I sign on to this 1-year company and of course there's going to be shifting. But then there comes a time that people sign on and they are not actually looking for that type of shift. They're not looking for their senior leadership to make a shift. Like you said, I thought we were going north, now we're going east. And like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to be a part of those conversations. I want to be a part of that, a part of the growth. I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing at my job, like that I'm moving in the right direction. And I think startups, these emerging brands, they miss that in their leadership because they are trying to move so quickly.
Yeah. And it's if you're changing your direction, the business direction and the business goals,
Mm-hmm.
that means the job description is going to change.
Right.
And you need to
Yes.
have that discussion with your team because you're like,
Yes.
I was at a company and when I came on board, it was all human food. That's what we talked about in an interview. And when I signed up, I was like, okay, great. This is
Right.
amazing. I'm excited for this. And then like 3 weeks in, it's like, oh, we're going to get out of human food. We're going into pet food now. I'm like,
Well, oh wait, so no human food at all? Just
yeah.
Whoa.
I was like, did you read my resume? Did you read the job description?
Right, right.
like, yes, pet food is covered under the FDA to some extent, but it's really AFCO.
Right, and it's different.
It's completely different. Like
it's different.
And
yeah, that's wild.
That it was, and things like that happen in startups and emerging taller brands, but like emerging brands,
mm-hmm.
and they don't think about the consequences of how that shift will become kind of create like a whiplash effect,
right,
with the team.
Mm-hmm.
How
mm-hmm.
that shift will need to change their job responsibilities. Those discussions need to happen from manager to manager to direct report.
Yes.
On down the line. There needs to be not just the company-wide directive in your all hands or your town hall meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You also need to have these within your departments.
Right.
A departmental meeting. These are new department goals and KPIs.
Yes.
And then also, hey, let's look at your job description and talk about what's going to change. Yeah. How we're going to time out that change, how we're going to like phase that in. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because you can't just cut a sharp corner and then you'll come out okay at 100 miles an hour. That's not how it works. Yeah. Right. Not even in Formula One. Right. Even they break below that limit.
So true. And I think that moves to our final point of like just engagement. Right?
Yes.
Leaders who encourage this type of engagement, right? That's when we see success and change and in growth and really what these companies need, right? They need more engagement. And I love the way you talk about like these conversations need to happen at the department level, need to happen one-on-one. You need to actually talk about your job description. How is that changing? All of that is engagement. Yeah. That's encouraging engagement from your people to be a part of this change process, to be a part of this growth versus feeling like, wow, I'm just here to work on this business and like no one really cares about what I feel about this business, the direction we're going or anything like that. Right. When people start having those feelings, that's culture, right? And that is negative impact on culture.
And then the word toxic starts getting thrown around about the company because the shift has been made. Yes. Nobody's clear on what their job is to be anymore because those goals that were developed between you and your manager, were developed amongst the department team. Those goals that were developed within departments did not get handed down from leadership. Leadership said, hey, these are the business goals that we want to hit this year. Talk amongst yourselves. Right. Come up with your goals. We're able to hit that and that you contribute to these goals. That all gets wiped away when you rebrand or change directions. Yeah. And they have to start over. I mean, just spent however many weeks in meetings developing all of this and getting on board and directing the passion towards these projects. Yeah, you're starting from square one all again. It's like, what was the point of doing all that? Exactly. And I would say nowadays, people talk more and more about culture. Yeah. So I feel like small brands before, you wouldn't hear anything about their culture. Nowadays, like, I mean, we know, just being in New York City, you hear about different brands. I'm like, oh, no, you don't want to work over here. Or you know, like, nope, that's not a good brand to work for. And these are emerging brands, right? These are not established brands that people are having these conversations about. And I feel like, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people didn't talk about small brands in this way at all. Like their culture was almost unknown. When now, like people do talk about these things. Yeah, people do talk about it. They care about it more. It definitely influences your image, your market image a lot more. Social media is literally everywhere. Yes. like most brands advertise on social media than they do in, I guess, like traditional commercials.
Yeah.
Because we're not watching TV in the same way. We have
Right.
streaming platforms,
Yep.
and some of them have ads.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one with ads, so I'm just like, if I see a brand's ad or commercial, it's usually through Instagram
All right.
or
Yeah.
TikTok or YouTube, because I'm not paying for YouTube TV. So
Facts.
and people can make comments on all of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not just like
Mhm.
you're putting out a commercial. No, you're putting out a commercial, and now you're being judged on that commercial. You're being judged on your brand, and people can see
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
So it's very important to understand your brand, your identity, and how to make that shift and that change respectfully to your audience as well as your team members to keep the passion and engagement alive.
Yes.
And I think this is something that established companies do very well with.
Yes.
If they can announce a merger, but the audience, the consumers, they'll know, oh, well, yeah, they're merging with this other company, but not much is going to change. I won't notice a change. I still trust them.
Right. Yeah.
And it's fine.
That's true.
Or even within the established brands, if you're in a you're in a manufacturing plant, and you get a directive from corporate and says, this is what's going on, this is what we're changing, this is the implementation period, this is what we expect you to do by this time.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're in food safety team in the plant, you're like, let me go talk to the operators.
Exactly.
Because they're the ones who are going to determine
Yes.
that this is actually going to be possible.
Right.
Exactly. Smart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because yes, we have SOPs, and the tribal knowledge has been documented. However, it's the workarounds.
It's the workaround.
It's the workarounds that we have
Yep.
to do. And that's where that
Yeah,
engagement.
aligned.
Yeah, we have to be aligned on this. If I called them and was like, hey, I got this memo from corporate. This is what they want us to do. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. What
How can we do this successfully?
Mm-hmm.
And your operators will tell you very, very directly, yay or nay.
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah, I thought about this, and I think this is the right direction, but we need to change this and this, because we don't even do these
things.
Yeah, we don't even do these. We don't even make this product here. So why would we have to measure this now? So things of that nature.
You'll get that insight.
Yeah, right? You'll get that insight. In that
quick.
In the same way, if you're in a plant operation, you need to go consult your operators. You need to consult your maintenance team.
Uh-huh.
The same thing needs to happen in these emerging brands. You need to go consult your team.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you can have high turnover, and you can, burn people out and hire new ones all day long. But if you look at your growth metrics and how that's tied to your retention rate, they're going to impact each other. You can't grow very fast if you're always training people.
Absolutely.
If you're always training people, if you're always trying to reignite the passion in a new employee, they're just sponging everything up and not wiping anything away. They're not actually helping you.
Yes.
Because you're constantly training.
So, and that's why leadership is super critical for these emerging brands. But also, right, like we've been talking about it from an emerging brand standpoint, but there are plenty of established companies out there that also need to think about leadership and how to engage their people more, how to retain their talent.
And then also, I guess, understand the age gaps and the generations that are working within your company. There's a lot of articles coming out. I was reading one on Forbes last night, and it was talking about how some generation, how they don't like to speak up or try things because they are afraid of failing and then failing publicly. And that comes from them growing up on social media. It had to be like it wasn't millennials. It's like some people after us. I was like, that makes sense.
It makes sense, right?
If we failed as children and as teenagers, it was amongst our peers.
Right, exactly. And everyone wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, and they would just crack jokes on you for the day or whatever and forget about it. by Friday or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
These teenagers, or not teenagers, but they're younger adults who are now coming into workforce who grew up on social media. No, it's recorded. It sticks with them longer. There's comments
Mm-hmm.
from strangers that they have no idea
No
who these
idea. But still
trolls.
impacts them the same way.
Yeah, it impacts them completely differently. So, we joke about Pinterest fails
Yeah.
amongst our
Right,
millennial generation.
exactly.
We joke about it. That is like a real fear for them.
Right.
And so, even being able to coach within different age groups or coaching different age groups and understanding that communication and psychology of how they're coming to work and how their generation grew up and how they see work and how they were taught how work works,
Yeah.
or how corporate America works. Companies need to pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, and this again, back to emotions, you can't just tell them like, okay, well, suck it up,
Right.
go back home.
Exactly.
You can't tell them that. You have to like, baby step for them. Like, hey,
Right. Yeah.
I see you're struggling with confidence in this area. How about we assign this project? We'll track it, see how you
Mm-hmm.
do, and then, present to the team.
Right.
Small
Exactly.
scale.
Yeah, and helping them be in situations to show that even if you do fail, it's not going to be a public shaming. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, we support that, and this is a learning process, and I think that comes down to like the, really the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
The culture of it.
Yeah, it comes down to culture, it comes down to leadership, it comes down
Mm-hmm.
to also just, again, keeping grace for the human experience
Yeah.
at work.
Yes. Yes.
And thinking like, hey, I'm 36, and some of my coworkers previously have been in their early 20s, and they are just like gun ho, and I'm like, hey, I love the energy here.
Right. Yeah.
So let's see how we can redirect this to be a little bit more efficient towards
Right.
the meeting structure or towards the project that they're going on, or just towards
Mm-hmm.
developing relationships.
Yes.
And
Yes.
also, which that reminds me of another thing, just like meeting structure.
Yeah.
Your meeting structure should exemplify your culture in some
Yes.
respects. It
Yeah.
should definitely illustrate the values and the goals that we all have that are posted all over on
Yes.
walls and on the
Ooh, that's a really
website
good
and in
topic.
your handbook. Maybe have a section dedicated to one of the values, the company values.
Yeah, that's actually a really good topic. Maybe we'll tackle that one day on Real Talk, or in other conversations, because you're right. Like, culture shows up in different parts, and people don't think about that. It 100% shows up in your meeting structure, and you meet most of us meet more than anything else at work.
Oh yeah.
So that is really a time that you can really communicate often your culture. And as a matter of fact, whether or not you are doing it intentionally or not, you're communicating about your culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Great leaders intentionally communicate about their culture within their meeting structure.
Yeah. How do you practice your culture without repeating the values, repeating the slogans?
Mm-hmm.
That's not practicing your culture.
Right. Exactly.
It's action. It's how you treat people.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, Nikita, we have talked about a lot today. And, I hope the people that are listening to us, that's watching us or listening to us on our podcast, that leadership really is critical within food, within organizations. And if we're not focusing on leadership, then people are not following us, right? They're not following us. And they're not staying with us from a retention standpoint, and they're definitely not engaged with the work that we're doing. And so that's why leadership is important, because we need to retain our talent. We need to make sure our talent is engaged and productive in order for us to be successful businesses.
Right, exactly. Leadership at every level needs to be
at every level. Yes, at every level.
Yeah.
So to close us, we've been asking our audience and our guests, you're actually our first guest of the season.
Yay.
The first question is, what's one leadership belief you've let go of and why?
I would have to say, this goes back to a previous experience I had. it was my first like real manager, I would say, because I wasn't an intern. I wasn't like a temp or anything, or a student. And so the manager I had, she was passionate in a very deconstructive way.
Oh, okay.
And she used, I guess, shame and embarrassment and oftentimes anger to correct situations. And so I was like, okay, I guess that seems effective. I'll take it on, even though I don't like it.
Right, yes.
Like you see that you get exposed to that early on in your career and you think that's that. And then you go home and watch on TV. Like, and you know, that's what's showing on TV. You don't oftentimes see healthy relationships between managers and their direct reports on TV. So I'm just like, okay, I guess this is what it is. It's corporate America. And it wasn't until I left that place I was like, oh no, this is not real. This is not the world.
This is not how you're supposed to be leading.
Yeah. And so I made it my directive to always try to be constructive and that not to use anger and negative emotions, just always try to be neutral.
Yeah.
And she used to tell me, like, you know, say it with a smile. I'm like, no, we're food safety. If we smile, that means everything is okay. Everything is not okay all the time. We can't approve of everything with a smile. So there are really two things I let go of. One, teaching with shame, and then two, saying everything with a smile.
That's not your style, right?
Not my style. I was like, I can't. No, we're like you're changing what ingredient? No.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little.
Let's talk about that. What did you even review the allergens here?
Right. Exactly. I love that one. That's a great one. Of course, we want to hear from our audience. Put in the chat, like, you know, if you have a leadership belief that you let go of, but we would love to also for our listeners to ask, like, after hearing this conversation today, what's one shift you're taking away? Let us know in the chat, message us, DM us, add us on LinkedIn. Let us know what shifts are you making as you listen to Real Talk today. And then I want to just quickly share for those who are watching us a free assessment tool around your culture. We talked about today, right? Like, culture is so important, and especially if anything resonated with you today around, you know, I need my leaders to step up differently, or I need, right? We believe those myths that we talked about in what's trending. You might need to start thinking about how you need to shift your culture. And this free leadership assessment tool will help you start that conversation. So please download it. Let us know what you think about us. Send us a message. And if you love today's episode, please subscribe to us on LinkedIn, on YouTube. We are now a podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as on Spotify, which we're super excited about. And we want to encourage you to join us each Monday at 11 a.m., 10 a.m. Central Time, because we're here. We're here to talk about leadership, to talk about culture, and all things in between. And with that, I want to thank Nikita. Thank you so much for being on our show today and really diving deep into leadership and how that impacts culture, especially when it comes to emerging brands.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great talk. I love talking about manufacturing and food safety and how leadership, you know, is a part of our careers and our jobs because, you know, as Catalyst says, we're technical leaders. Yeah. And not just, you know, food safety professionals. We are leaders in food safety.
Yes. And we need those leadership skills to be able to make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. With that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Have a good one, everybody.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.